Good morning, Andy and everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's Friday, it's nearly the weekend, and we are on the home straight of our week-long focus on luxury with CLIA. And thank you for having us involved, Andy, because I've got to speak to lots of great people this week, thanks to you inviting me to do the interviews. So it's been really good fun. And I bet you're looking forward to today, aren't you?
I am looking forward to today, but I think it's just been an amazing week, and thank you to everyone who's been tuning in at 9 a.m. To join Lucy and I and our special guest of a week of luxury cruise. It's certainly whet my appetite for when the time is right for travel and for the finer things in life. And actually the breadth of product and destinations has been really...
Hang on a minute, do these cruise lines actually accept you on? I mean, they've got standards, Harmer.
There's just no need. It is Friday. I thought you'd been as mean as you could have been all week, but I didn't know you were saving it for a special meaniness on today. But thank you, Lucy. But no, they've really painted a picture of some great travel opportunities and experiences. So I've loved the week.
Yeah, and so to finish off, we brought a panel together this morning. We're going to be joined by Iain Powell from Saga and Chris Townson from Uniworld and Bernard Carter from Oceania. And it's really interesting. They've talked to me about the trends that they were seeing in luxury travel and how well things were going at the start of this year. And then they've talked about some of the changes that they've seen, obviously, as a result of the situation that we're currently in, but really interesting what they're seeing now as being really, really popular in the new bookings and in terms of people accepting their future cruise credits and what they're spending those on. So I think it's really interesting to listen to because it might give you some advice on what you should be selling and focusing on in your own businesses. So should we take a listen to them?
Yes, let's do it.
Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to the next session in our week of luxury cruising with CLIA. And I'm delighted today to be joined by a panel of experts. So I've got Bernard Carter from Oceania, I've got Iain Powell from Saga Cruises, and I have got Chris Townson from Uniworld Boutique River Cruises. So welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining me. Now, we have got a lot to get through because we cover lots of different types of cruising with you here. I think let's first of all, though, let's just kind of take ourselves back from the period that we're in at the moment. Let's just talk about the trends that you were seeing in the luxury sector before the COVID pandemic, and then we'll move on to where we are now. But let's just get a handle on what was happening beforehand. Should we start with you, Bernie?
Yeah, thank you, Lucy, and hello, everybody. It's been an interesting few years for the higher end of the market overall. We've seen booking trends push further out, people actually spending more money, recognizing the true value that they get at that end of the market, and going to much more exotic destinations, much further afield. Of course, what happens to a degree there is that people that are in the higher end, the luxury end of the market, have generally cruised for years. They've traveled to many places. So they're now searching for more destinations to visit.
Okay, all right. Is that something you would concur with, Iain, or what have you been seeing? Because obviously you've got a quite distinct clientele, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's fair to say with our new ships, we're perhaps a little bit newer into the luxury market. So we I guess to an extent I'd agree, we are seeing our customers want to venture a little bit further afield, but obviously with our cruising being ex-UK, the majority of what we're offering is in and around Europe. But we've seen some amazing success on some longer length cruises. So, we did a cruise to New York, for example, at New Year that did exceptionally well with past passengers. So I think I agree people are wanting to venture a little bit further afield, but I think for us, with us being a little bit newer into this market, this is about providing our existing guests, I guess, with something that they haven't experienced, which is the ship more so than the itineraries. And we're now probably starting to move into a world now where we now have to venture a little bit further afield and offer something a bit more unique, because those customers have now experienced the ships. They want to go to new ports of call, and obviously we've got a job to do to get new customers cruising with us as well, who, again, like Bernie says, are quite willing, I think, to travel and explore some far-flung destinations.
So older people becoming more adventurous. I mean, that's a trend we've been seeing across travel generally. So it applies to cruise, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. At first, I think it was, I've got to see the new ship. I've got to come and see Spirit of Discovery. You know, this is a whole new world for Saga. And then beyond that, it's okay, I've seen that now. It's fantastic. Now I want to go to a new port of call.
Okay, all right. Now, what about with river cruising, Chris? What have you been seeing? Because obviously there's some very established rivers that people cruise on. So is it a case that they're now looking for further flung destinations, or what do they want in the luxury sector in the river?
I think certainly sort of pre-crisis, following on from Bernie, our exotics collection was selling very, very well. Further afield, sort of, you know, not just the cruise, but the cruise and tour combination, 15 days roughly. We had a great spike off the back of J. McDonald cruising on India last year. That was huge for us. And then since then, we've launched 2 new ships, one in the Mekong and one in Egypt. So we've sort of been really rolling this out and promoting these ships and building the awareness. So I think certainly the more adventurous, the further afield trips with significant volumes going on there. But certainly European is where our main capacity is. And Portugal really is being the best seller for sure, and Italy after that. So those were our sort of key rivers. And that's a little bit different than traditional Rhine, Main, Danube. So we were seeing sort of spikes in these other rivers where you wouldn't particularly expect it.
Okay, all right. Well, look, that brings us, to where we are now. Obviously, things that you're all pausing your operations at the minute. We understand that, but you're all still selling. And I think, you know, as we're starting to ease out of things a little bit, hopefully you're seeing a few more green shoots. So perhaps you can just talk to us now about, you know, how customers have changed, or, you know, what are they looking for now from you? Should we go around again? Start with you, Bernie.
Yeah, okay. Yes, it's interesting because, of course, when we paused the operations, a great deal of the guests that were already booked chose to go with the future cruise credits. So, you know, it's a well-known fact that we're expecting our loyal cruise community to be one of the key drivers in getting us through the other side of the pandemic. And we've seen a lot of interest from guests that have the future cruise credits. We also have promotions in the marketplace, and I know the industry itself has galvanized itself with various promotions. So we're giving choices to people further ahead. Some are looking at the back end of this year, but many are looking further into 21 and 22, and they're taking the benefit of some great offers plus additional value future cruise credits. So we're very thankful to the loyalty of the guests and also to our travel agent partners in actually recommending these options to their guests, because it's been a very uncertain time, particularly in the first 6 to 8 weeks after it all broke. And we are seeing this level of support growing steadily.
Okay, that's good to hear. And Iain, of course, you were about to launch your second new ship. We've got Spirit of Discovery, we had Spirit of Adventure coming. So I imagine that's been a big disappointment for people booked on that. So tell us what's happening. Are they just going to wait until you do eventually get to launch that ship, or are you managing to transfer them onto other sailings, or what's happening?
A bit of both. So as I said before, we're lucky to have some very loyal guests, and we are amending people over a rate just over 60%. So just over 60% of guests are choosing to either amend to another cruise now, or to take a future cruise credit with a view to amending in the near future. For Spirit of Adventure, we've spoken to the guests who were due to sail on her inaugural cruise, which we're obviously rearranging, in the hope that I think the vast majority of them on that cruise, for example, will stick on that cruise because it's something quite special.
They want to be the first, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And a lot of those are our Britannia Club members who have travelled with us for many years, and they want to be there to see the new ship. So there's a lot of good stuff happening in terms of amendments. I guess in terms of trends that are coming out, we are seeing green shoots. New business is actually looking very good. So we're benefiting from people amending, which I guess, similar to like Bernie said, will probably get us through the issues that we've currently got. But the last few weeks, there's been some incredible volume coming through on new business, almost more than you would expect, and that's I think testament to primarily what our travel agent partners are doing in supporting us,
And so tell us about this new business then. I mean, are there any trends in that, and where are they booking for? Presumably 2021 and beyond.
Beyond, absolutely, yeah.
And can you see any sort of trends in where they're booking, or?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, the majority of our cruises are Europe, in and around Europe. Greenland, Iceland have been particularly popular. Admittedly, they were pre pre-crisis, but they continue to be very popular. The Baltics, and then I guess the emerging one, which we would all probably assume, is British Isles. You know, British Isles cruising is extremely popular at the moment with both new and existing guests, probably driven by I guess a bit closer to home, perhaps feels a little bit of a safer option at this point in time. So we're seeing that perform very, very well, and there's a real interest for us in offering more British Isles cruising. But with today's announcement, you know, that we've made around coronavirus cover in our insurance, which we think is very exciting news, perhaps that will give people the confidence to venture a little bit further. You know, so maybe we'll see in the coming weeks. People become willing, I guess, to book for, you know, those other destinations outside of the British Isles.
Yeah, well, Iain, I had you on a webcast some weeks ago now talking about the mature market and how the insurance issue was such a big barrier, wasn't it? Because even if things reopen, people were not going to be comfortable, obviously, to book without insurance. So that's brilliant news today. So I do think that really works for you. Let's ask Chris about trends that you're seeing then. You know, have things changed? You know, the type of things people are looking for now, you know, given what we've been through in the last 12 weeks.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think we've had sort of two different examples, I guess. I'll go back to Shane McDonald again. We just had a repeat showing on India, and that was repeated.
I've been watching it.
That was repeated without our knowledge, so which was great. But literally, we jumped into action straight away, and there was a huge surge of inquiries. Now we work with our partners; they went out to their databases, and no word of a lie, literally this thing just went crazy. Caught us on the hop. Massive surge in terms of website inquiries, search. Our partners went out there as well. We marketed this thing, and it just blew us away. We were talking a huge amount of bookings that came through as a net result of that. So we're talking about the more mature traveller. Have they got issues travelling further afield? Well, certainly not on this occasion. That was definitely came through. What we're finding in terms of general trends is more closer to home travel. That seems to be the sort of general pattern. We're seeing a big uplift in no-fly. We put more effort and more communications in no-fly, so we've put a whole load of more focus on Eurostar. That's gone really well for us, and definitely bookings are coming through. I'd echo Iain and Bernie's comments that green shoots are happening. People are definitely searching on a much bigger scale over the last 3 to 4 weeks. People are booking on a much bigger scale. That no-fly trend is something that we're developing. We've also just introduced a self-drive to France. So really, if you look at normal French holidays, holidaymakers, the amount of people who will drive down there in their own cars, we're introducing that on a river cruise basis, so people can drive down, maybe stop over en route, drive to our ship, check in, we sort all the luggage out, get them on board, and then we're pre-booking the car parks, local car park, and then they just stroll back to the ship. So these little innovations now, so we're sort of following the trend and implementing new processes accordingly. So I think it's really interesting.
It's the airport experience and the flight that they are perhaps looking to avoid at the moment, or that's the nervousness, but they're not so worried about actually being on one of your vessels.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, we've done a whole, as you know, with Ellen, a whole sort of focus on health and safety protocol. So across aboard on the ships and off board, the whole new delivery of the products and the way it'll look and feel. We've implemented that very, very early in the piece. So I think you've got the whole travel with confidence messaging is quite key, I think, for sure. It's not, you know, there's hygiene factors now that weren't there before when people are making decisions, and you've got to tick these boxes and make sure you deliver.
So let's talk about that, you know, around the group, because clearly training for you guys has been so important all the time. You know, it has been for years, and I guess the focus has been on the ship and it's been on the destinations that you go to, etc. So will that stay the same, or do you think actually you'll have a much greater focus on the health and safety and that sort of reassurance side of things within your training from now on?
Well, I think that there will be a valid part of the training will be the onboard experience, how we're enhancing the various measures that we have in place, what we're doing before the booking or before the arrival, for instance, upon arrival, and then throughout the cruise itself, because the travel partners will want to be able to reassure the guests of the safety and the fact that the experience won't be diminished. So yes, it will form a part. How much of a part is still to be seen. And I think as time goes on, the need for that will obviously reduce somewhat. And as an industry, we'll probably react accordingly.
Okay, what about the other two? Ian, what are you focusing on training wise and your messaging to travel agents?
Yeah, I think short term is going to be a lot around assurances, the new things we're doing on board to keep customers safe. So we will very soon release our cruise reassurance message with Saga. So a lot of points that I won't go into now.
Shame.
There's a lot of very exciting stuff that that we think.
So this is Chris is talking about his cruise with confidence, or lots of people are bringing out these reassurance, more flexibility, in terms of when you can cancel without incurring any costs. Is it that kind of thing you're going to bring out?
We've already done a lot of that. So cancellation promises, amendments, things that we've already done that. This is more about the experience from your door to the ship.
Okay.
Once you're on the ship, how we will change some of the things we do to keep the guests safe in the immediate, while coronavirus is still the issue that it is now. So we've got that coming up. There will be e-learning modules on our learning platform for travel agents to use. And there'll be a toolkit for them to also use, which is more around, okay, now how do I convey that to my customer? So how do I market it? How do I talk about it? Because it is, we spoke about on the last webcast, it is a bit of an odd one to market. You have to approach it quite delicately, and it has to be turned into a reassurance and a positive, as opposed to focusing on the negative as to why are we doing it. So we're going to try and help travel agents with doing that, and I guess give some insight as to how we're doing it. So yeah, lots of good stuff coming up, and I think it will be the focus for the short term. Hopefully, in the long term, when we're post coronavirus, it will be we'll go back to an element of BAU, because for us a big part of training is getting travel agents on board our ships. We have a big job to do, obviously, to show them that these new ships are something quite different for Saga.
Well, and you got so many on when you launched Discovery, and it really was successful, wasn't it? I mean, agents suddenly saw Saga cruising in a totally different light, and it gave you some good bookings off the back of that.
Absolutely. The following I think 3 months in a row were the best we'd ever had, and it is that light bulb moment of this isn't what I expected from Saga. So getting them on board a ship is still massively important. At the moment, we know that's difficult, so we've got to use webinars, e-learning, things like that. As soon as we're able to get them back on board, that's what we'll be doing.
Okay, brilliant. And Chris, you mentioned Ellen, your president, earlier. I interviewed her weeks ago now, whilst we were in lockdown. And I think, it's fair to say she was one of the first people to come out with very clearly stating some of the measures that you were going to be putting in place on the rivers to reassure people in terms of health and safety protocols and new measures and things. So is that something that you've now been able to convey onto the trade?
Yeah, definitely. Every training that we're doing, I think we trained over 500 agents last week, for example. We'll do the general training, but the elephant in the room is actually how you're going to deliver the product. So I think on an ocean vessel, there's a lot more space. I'm not saying it's easy on an ocean vessel, social distancing, but obviously river cruise vessels are smaller. We're lucky in terms of a guest that, with our ships, we've on average, we have 120, 130 guests, so we've got a lot more space on board. We have a lot more multiple venues on board, so therefore, you can do things like dining reservations to make sure we've got social distancing in place. We've got multiple venues, bars on board as well. So again, that sort of onboard delivery is all very doable from our end, and we've been through every element of the onboard delivery. And similarly from the offboard delivery as well, speaking to each supplier, that's what we've been going through element by element. And again, because we work in small groups, we can work those small groups and adhere to the social distancing rules in the regions we travel to. So absolutely, that's absolutely a key part, I think. Certainly speaking to our res team, that crops up on pretty much every call. How are you delivering the products? That comes through.
Because of course there's another, I think it's a German river cruise line that began operating last week, and we saw some pictures of people in masks, and you could sort of see how it was going to be. So is that sort of going to be standard for everybody in river cruise? And I mean, if they've managed to restart, is that something that is quite close for you now?
Yeah, look, I think that if there is the potential to start in 2020, that's something we would look at for sure. It just depends on flying rules and regulations, and again, obviously a lot of our business is from America, so we're more reliant on that market flowing back in for us to sort of join it from the UK end. But I certainly believe we could deliver a great experience still for 2020. if we can get it off the ground. But all our protocols are in place, and it's not just delivering the product; it's delivering it in the best way possible. So you can't sort of have a half-baked product. It would still be sort of very similar to the old Uniworld levels. And I believe we can do that.
I think that's the concern, isn't it? Because in the luxury market particularly, it's that level of service being sort of very personal, knowing your drink, coming and greeting you, feeling like you're an old friend. And I mean, that's one of the things you always talk about in the luxury cruise sector. And it's how that, I guess the question is, you're saying, Chris, that you think you can still deliver the Uniworld service under these sort of conditions. And I guess, but will people have to manage their expectations a bit? You won't be able to do it exactly, presumably.
It won't be 100% as it was, but I think, again, back to the space we have on our super ships, we've got a lot of space on there. So actually, it's not like, some ships have got, huge volumes. Would we be operating at full capacity? No, not reality. So you're actually going to take some capacity out of there. But with the multiple areas we have on board and the space we have in the main lounges and what have you, then we can actually deliver those experiences.
Okay, sure. Is that the same? Sorry, Chris.
No, similar for the off-board. The amount of detail that we're getting into with our key suppliers, we believe that we can, we'll either revise it in a certain way, but again, we'll make sure that the experience is as close to it as it was as it can be.
Well, I guess that you've led on really nicely, because of course I've spoken to lots of cruise people over the last few weeks, and they've been talking about how initially it might just be controlling the ship and going to private islands, because actually then you can really control the whole product offering. But it's when you actually then go to a port and you've got people going off on coaches and on foot and going into different museums, and that's harder to control. So what will the shore excursion, the sort of the destination experience, be like in the future, and how can you maintain that to the luxurious standards that you have been previously? Start with you, Bernie.
Yes, well, the one thing that we're already looking at doing, we have an enhanced level of excursions that we've already been operating with fewer number of guests on spacious vehicles with a feeling of more space. And it just lends, this whole situation lends to that sort of experience now. So I think, again, across the industry, the infrastructure is there for us to take advantage of. And we are seeing the whole idea of making things more personal, making it so that you can go to places that aren't going to be crowded, see some different things, because in very many of the ports that we go to, and some of the key ports that we'll probably start with, because they'll have the necessary infrastructure to be able to take the ships in and process everybody. In those cities, there are some amazing places. I mean, there are parts of Barcelona that I imagine a lot of people haven't been to, that these new excursions and these new operations can take them to.
So you're going to basically perhaps shun the Gaudi cathedrals, etc., but you're going to go to the more off the beaten track, the lesser known, less crowded attractions, to try and keep that more feeling of more space for people.
Yeah, I mean, those are choices that we're adding in. But again, when you go to some of the busier places, there are times when you can go sometimes, for instance, going to the Vatican, you can have an almost behind closed doors experience.
Okay.
And I think that there will be a more of a demand for people to enjoy that sort of experience.
Yeah, I mean, we'll finish on this really, but lots of people are saying actually that the luxury sector may well recover quicker because of all these things you're saying, because people will be looking for more privacy, more exclusivity, more space. So, I guess just to finish off on a positive note, is that something that you see happening as well? Ian?
Yeah, I guess so. I think you're right. I think luxury generally is almost fortunate that, generally speaking, luxury cruising means more space on board, and I think we're fortunate that that's going to be a positive for guests right now, allowing them more space. Fresh air is obviously something that has been talked extensively about, the government meeting outside, things like that. I think, again, generally speaking, luxury cruise are offering balcony cabins, more space in your cabin as well. So fresh air is probably more accessible. I think all of those things are topics that we can talk about as real positives for our customers. For Saga as well, on the excursion point, we launched Explore Ashore at the same time as we launched Spirit of Discovery, which is our concierge program really of excursions, a mix of do it yourself, where we give you the tools to do it yourself, and also some more traditional guided excursions. But they are two unique places. They are two, behind the scenes tours, exclusive access. We launched this program that now fits exceptionally well with, which I'll now claim we did intentionally, but it fits exceptionally well with the scenario that we found ourselves in, where most of our excursions can still operate with some very small adjustments, as opposed to having to make wholesale changes to 52 people on one bus. That's just not the world that we're in, thankfully. So I agree. I think luxury is hopefully more geared up to recover from this a little bit quicker than perhaps some of those who are carrying large volumes of passengers, where you have less space per passenger.
Yeah. Okay. And let's give Chris the final word, because he's the only one representing River. Ellen said actually she thought River would recover sooner than Ocean. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it echoes exactly what Iain and Bernie said. The reality is that we're all in this sort of high-end luxury sector. So we've already got the private excursions in place. Small groups, average 15 people, big coaches where needed, private events where we'll take over St. Mark's Basilica. Now, there's usually thousands of people in there of an evening. We're in there with 120 guests. Wow. So you can actually sort of manage and process and do these things. So we have a lot of these things in place. There will be some new elements to it as well. But I think, again, and I think the consumer will get more and more into this for sure. They'll be asking these questions. And I think, going back to training, it's our job to make sure that the partners out there, the agents out there, are aware of the differences. That we have these things in place, we're ready to go, and it is different because it's much smaller. So we're not reinventing the wheel, luckily.
Yes,
in our sector of the market.
Before we go on, I must just say, Iain, I forgot. Of course, you've got the Spirit of the Rhine. Chris is not the only person representing River. I shouldn't forget Saga's River cruise ship. Sorry about that. And just finally, though, all these things that you'll have to do, and I know you're going to take it very seriously, and you're going to do these fantastic things to make sure your guests are safe. But that incurs a cost. Are we likely to see prices, even at, we're already paying quite a high ticket price for your products anyway, are we likely to see prices increase to allow you to do these changes that you're going to need to make?
That's an interesting one.
Nobody wants that question.
I would say that we have our pricing in place for 21 already. And we're certainly not planning at this stage to increase that pricing, but we will have to see as an industry how things develop.
Yeah, I think from our side, similarly, pricing in place already for next year. We have the price promise, which guarantees customers they won't pay more than someone who is pay less than someone who was booked earlier. So booking early gets you the best deal. So increasing prices there isn't something we would do. So no, I think there is a cost of doing it. You have to. I think it all comes down to offering value for money to the customer. It has to stack up where the customer believes that they are receiving a holiday that is value for money, and that's what it all comes down to. And if the landscape of value for money changes, then so be it. But I think right now there's no intention from our side of any price increases.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, no, very similar. I mean, we've done price parity year on year for rebookings from people 20 to 21, so that was all arranged. Pricing was in the marketplace anyway. We've just launched 21 fully and properly, so we've got the usual raft of early bird deals. I think that the reality, though, in the future is that our 2021 business is looking very, very strong. So we're going to get to a point, that's just from rebookings, then we get new bookings coming in, pent up demand, people who the wanderlust to travel, they want to do and get on with these things. I think that's starting to happen. So I think that 2021 will become very, very busy very quickly.
Could be a good year.
Message would be to, for people, for agents looking at customers who are looking for 2021, it would be to get in early, because the reality is stock levels for all of us will be struggling around the corner. I think that will lend itself to 2022 coming out earlier than usual as well. So I think 21 will be a challenge more for the level of stock that we have in our capacity. But
get in now while the prices are still great. Yeah. And while there is availability. All right, so that's a great message for agents to tell their customers. I wish you all well. I hope your sales continue to go well. So Thank you to Bernie from Oceania, to Iain from Saga, and to Chris from Uniworld. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thanks, Lucy.
Wow, 3 real leaders from the UK luxury cruise sector. Well done, Lucy, on keeping them in line.
Well, I was very strict.
Quite right too. And Lucy, thank you again for all of your support and for taking part in our Luxury Week. It's been great as ever working with you and the team at Travel Weekly. So thanks.
Well, I have told everybody I've interviewed this week that I will be expecting a little visit on one of their ships when everything restarts. So that's
Nice.
my payment.
Can I come with you?
Yes, you can. You can be my +1 anytime.
I normally just have to carry your bag, so that's an improvement. But look, thank you to you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Look out for our podcast, which will be coming out the next couple of days. So lots more stuff there about luxury cruising. And Lucy and I will be back in the next few weeks with some more in-depth, investigative stuff. Yes. No? Am I overselling?
Yeah.
We'll be back very soon to talk about cruise. But in the meantime, thanks again for watching. We'll see you again very soon.
Yeah. See you soon.